This next lab is going to be lab 2. We're going to configure failover clustering. In this lab, we're going to install and configure failover cluster, configure quorum, and implement cluster aware updating and upgrade a cluster. The approximate lab time for this is 145 minutes. However, I do not expect it to take that long. So we're going to open up server 1, which should be open up from the previous lab. And we are going to click on Tools. And we're going to go into the SCSI initiator, and then click on Yes. And we are going to type in the target, which is going to be storage01.contoso.com, and then select Quick Connect. Alright, and the connection failed. Okay, I need to turn on the storage. I didn't log in, so we need to log into the storage. So it's off, so that's probably why it failed. So we're going to double click and action, start. Okay, I have logged into storage 1. Now I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it to get it out of the way. And I am going to go back to server 1, reopen or maximize server manager, go back into tools, go back into the initiator, and now let's try this again. storage01.toso.com, quick connect, and there it is. It does see it. That's a good thing. And we'll go ahead and click on done, and then OK to close out of the initiator. And we're going to go into tools again, and this time go into computer management. Now that we're in computer management, we're going to click on disk management. And you'll see that we have all these unknown disks. This is what we created during the lab setup, the last part of the lab setup. So those are all those disks. So the first thing we're going to do is right click on the 8 gig. So we're going to right click and make it online, and then right click, initialize, and then click on OK. Okay, so now we have disk 1 being 8 GB unallocated. Now we're going to right click on the unallocated and do new simple volume. And then next, and next. And next. We're going to call this shared disk. and next, and finish. Now we're going to go on to the next one. Right click. Oops, let's bring this down a little bit. Give ourselves a little bit more room to play. Alright, so there's our 8. Now we're going to click on the 2, right click, online, right click, initialize, and then OK. Right click, new simple volume, next, 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 and this is going to be called QUORUM disk, and next, and finish. Alright, now we're going to close out of computer management, and we're going to click on cancel here, cancel here. Now we're going to go into server 2, close out of this. So I'm going to select server 2 right here, click on tools, go into the initiator, click on yes, and target, we're going to go back to storage 01 contoso.com, quick connect, and then done. We're going to click on volumes and devices. And click the auto configure. And then click on OK. Okay, and that is the end of that exercise. This next exercise, we're going to go into installing failover clustering. When running the validate the cluster configuration wizard, the 4 main tests are inventory, network, storage, and system configuration. So we're going to go into server 01. Minimize this. So, oops. I need server 01. And we're going to go into the server manager and click on manage, add roles and features. And we're going to click on next. 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 And in features, we want to select failover clustering. And then click on add features. And next. And then install. And then we're going to do the same thing on server 2. So manage, add roles and features, next, 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 next. Select failover clustering, add features, next, and install. Now we're going to create a failover cluster. In this exercise, we're going to create a failover cluster using 2 virtual machines. Each node share should have the same or similar hardware, which we do, including network adapters, and should have the certified for Windows Server 2012 logo requirements, which again we do. Each cluster node must be running the same edition of Windows, which we do because I'm running all the same standard Windows Server 2012. Each server should also have the same roles and features, which we have set up, and each node must be in the same Active Directory domain, which it is because they're all set up through the same domain controller, and the domain is contoso.com. Alright, so on server 1, go back to server 1, we are still installing the failover clustering. So I'm going to pause the video for a moment and then we'll restart once this is finished installing. Okay, now that we've completed our installation on server 1, we'll go ahead and click on close. And I will go ahead and close out of Server Manager for now. And we are going to right-click on our network adapter and open Network and Sharing Center. In the Network and Sharing dialog box, we're going to click on the second Ethernet and go into Properties. And go into IPv4. And Properties. Here we've already assigned it. We're going to change. So it's currently 192.168.1.61. We're going to change it to 5. We're going to put it on a different network. Change that to 5. And then 1. And then we'll go ahead and click on OK. And close. And close. And close this on server 1. Now we're going to go over to server 2. And it looks like this is also completed. Close. And close that. Again, we're going to go into our network adapters, open Network and Sharing Center, click on, select on Ethernet 2. And go into Properties, IPv4, Properties. Again, we're going to change this to 5, and then change the number to 2. So 192.168.5.2. And we have our default subnet mask. Now we'll go ahead and do OK, and close, close, and then close out of this. Now we're going to flip over to server 1 again. And open up the server manager. And then we're going to click on Tools and Failover Cluster Manager. Tools, Failover Cluster Manager. To manage a failover cluster, you must be logged in with a domain user account. A domain user account is required because you need access to Active Directory domain services and all servers in the cluster, including remote servers. So what we have to do is log in as the domain administrator. So we're going to right click, sign out, and we gotta do the same thing, I believe, over to server 2. Let's stick with server 1 for now. We're gonna do our sign in screen. We're gonna click on this little back button, and we are gonna do other user, and we're gonna do Contoso. Administrator. I'll put in our password. Okay. Now I should be able to go into Server Manager. This is that step that was skipped through in the book and in the lab that is online. Alright, so now we're back into Server Manager. We're going to go back into Tools, Failover Cluster Manager, and see, it took us right to it. We're going to click on Validate Configuration. And then Next. We're going to type in server 01. And then add. And then we're going to type in server 02. And then add. And then next. And we'll go ahead and let it run all tests. So we're going to click on Next. And then Next. And this is going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to pause this while I wait for this to finish. And I'll resume the video once it's completed. Okay, so we should have gotten 2 errors, and I did. The validate IP configuration and validate network. This is caused by not having a usable adapter with a defined default gateway. So we're going to go ahead and click on Finish. And then Next. And then in the cluster name, we're going to type in cluster 1. And we're going to uncheck the box next to the 192.168.5.0. So we're going to uncheck that box. And then next to the 192.168.1.0 switch 24, we're going to click here. So 192.168.1.0, we're going to click here to add an address. And we are going to type 192.168.1.52. And then Next. And then here we're going to go ahead and click on Next again. Okay, so it's going to run its process. And then we are going to go ahead and do Finish. And then in the cluster manager, we're going to expand this node. And then under storage, we're going to expand storage and left click pools. And that is the end of this exercise. The next exercise is going to be to configure the quorum. Since we only have the two nodes, we're going to create a quorum using what's called a disk witness. So while we are on server 1 from the last exercise, with the Failover Cluster Manager open, we're going to go ahead and select on Nodes. And we should see server 1 and server 2. And we're going to expand storage, which we already did, and we're going to click on disks. We're going to right click cluster 1, disk 1, expand storage. Oops. We're going to left click cluster1.contoso.com and right click and configure cluster. Okay, so we've right clicked, left click, right click, and go into more actions and click on configure cluster quorum settings. Alright, now from here we're going to click on Next, and then we are going to click on Advanced, and Next, and we're just going to take the defaults and click on Next. This is already selected, configure disk witness, and Next. We are on the configure storage witness page. The shared disk, which is 2 gig, is already selected. And if we're not sure, we can go ahead and expand that. And yes, it is the 2 gig. So we'll go ahead and click on Next. And then on the confirmation page, we'll go ahead and click on Next. And then click on Finish. That is the end of that exercise. The next exercise is going to be, we're going to configure a clustered storage space from the 3 SCSI drivers. Storage spaces in failover clustering is the clustered storage space that provides resilient, highly available storage. So we are going to remain on server 1. We're going to go back to server manager. So I'm going to close out of this. And we're on server manager. We're going to go into manage, add roles, and wait for that to come up. And next. Next. Now see here we have 2 servers. We want to select server 01 and select next. Here we're going to expand the file and storage services node and then select the file server role. And then we're going to go ahead and click on next. Next. And install. And we're going to wait for that to install. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and pause, and then we'll resume the video once it's finished installing. Okay, we've finished installing. We're going to go ahead and click on close. And again, we're going to go back into our manage, add roles and features. Next. Next. Again, we're going to select server 01. And then next. And we're going to click on expand our node here. Expand our node here. Excuse me. Now this time we're going to go ahead and select the file and SCSI services node. Actually, that's the second part of this, so I need to click on previous. And this time we're going to do server 02. And next. And we're going to expand this. And again, click on File Server. And then next. And next again. And then install. And again, I'm going to pause the video while we wait for this to install. Okay, that installed pretty quickly, so we're going to go ahead and click on close. And we're going to go back into tools. And Failover Cluster Manager. And then on the left-hand side, we're going to expand the cluster node and expand storage. And then click Pools. Now we're going to right-click Pool. And we are going to do New Storage Pool. And then next. And then we're going to select cluster 1 and type in storage pool. And then next. And we're going to select the second cluster. So we click on back. Storage pool, select cluster 1, next, actually we have to select all 3 of these. And next, and then create. Alright, so now that is completed, we're going to go ahead and click on close. And then we're going to right click on the storage pool. Okay, so we are actually going to click on, left click once to select it, right click, and we're going to do new virtual disk. And then select next. We're going to click storage pool, and then select next. And here we're going to type in storage disk.
For the kids. I'm right here.
So we've typed in storage disk, and then we're going to click on next. We're going to select simple. It's already selected, but we're just going to click it anyway. And then next. Here we're going to type in 12 for size. And then next, and then create. And then now that's been created and the wizard is done, let's go ahead and do close. And from here we're going to do next. This is already selected and we have 12 gig available. So we're going to click on next and next. And then we'll let it default to G. And then next. Here we're going to rename it to storage. Next, create. Now we'll go ahead and close, and that's the end of the exercise. The next exercise, or this exercise, we are going to implement a cluster-aware updating. When updates need to be applied to nodes in a cluster, you have to ensure that all the nodes get the same update. Cluster-aware updating will schedule the updates to be deployed to a cluster. So we are going to log into storage 1 or pull up storage 1. I'm going to close out of this, minimize this, and go into storage 1. Okay, now I'm going to actually log off of this and log on to make sure I'm logged on as the Contoso administrator. So I'm going to do sign out. And then other user. Tab. Okay, now that we have the server manager, we are on the storage 01. Click on manage. Add roles and features. Next, 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 and next one more time. And we are going to install remote server, which is why we had to log in as the Contoso administrator. We have to expand feature administration. And then expand the Failover cluster tools. And then select cluster management tools.
Oh, yep, they're broken.
Cluster module for Windows PowerShell. Server. And the Failover cluster command interface. And then we're going to go ahead and click on next and install. Okay, so now it's completed. I'm going to go ahead and click on close. And now we are going to go into, again, we're still on storage 1, tools, and cluster aware updating. And I just clicked the drop down. I'm going to click on cluster 1 and then click connect. Next step is to configure cluster self-updating options, which is right here. And next, We're going to add the CAU cluster node. And then click on Next. And then let it default. We're going to click on Next. From here, we are going to click on Next, Next, and then Apply. Alright, now we can go ahead and click on Close. And then we're going to close the cluster aware updating. Close the server manager. And that is the end of this exercise. So congratulations, we have now completed Lab 2. The next video is going to be Lab 3, which is managing failover clustering.